material. So tonight's webinar is entitled How to Profit from Insider Trades. And what we're going to be doing is taking a look at some of the features that are coded into GuruFocus.com that allow us to identify insider transactions. Now, a lot of studies been done on insider trades, and please don't confuse the terms insider trading with insider trades. An insider, by the SEC's definition, is simply a company executive or employee or a 5% or greater owner. So it's anyone with intimate knowledge of the company that has available to them non-public information, and their trades are treated a little bit differently. They have to report each of their trades within inside of 2 weeks to ensure that there is no insider trading going on, and to make everything completely transparent. So luckily, since they file it, that means we've got information that we can track, and we can monitor this and see if we can derive any insights from their actions. Now, two things to cover really quickly. Number one, a lot of people want to look for insider sells. And they think if a lot of insiders are selling a company, I need to get out, or I need to get short, or I need to buy put options. And it's really not the case, because if you think about insiders, just think of yourself. If you were issued a lot of stock options or a lot of stock as part of your compensation with a company, you can sell stock for a number of reasons. Maybe you got a child going to college. Maybe you're about to buy a new house. Maybe you want to diversify your portfolio, or you're moving money around to set up a trust for a child. A lot of these guys receive stock options as their compensation, so to cash those out, they simply convert them to shares and immediately sell those shares on the open market, and that shows up as an insider sale as well. So just take notice when you see a lot of insider sells. Do not immediately take that as it's time to get shorter, time to get out of the stock. The other part of that is insiders buy for only one reason, right? They sell for a number of reasons. I've given you 5 or 6 of them, but the only reason you would buy stock is if you think it's going higher, and you think it's undervalued, or the company's going to grow more than expected, and you think you're going to make money on that. So insider buys are much more valuable than insider sells. Let's go ahead and take a look at the website. I'll get off of this PowerPoint slide here and take us to the GuruFocus website. And the insider information, the majority of it you can find up here in the top. There is a tab that says Insiders, and you see that right here at the top of your screen. And the majority of information can be found inside of there. What I want to do really quickly is just show you the track record that these insiders have. All right, so over the Insiders tab, 2 up from the bottom is one called Insider Trends, if you see that. And what it's going to show us is a multi-year history of insider buying across the market and across different sectors, and how the stock has performed around that. And you're going to see the same thing across pretty much every industry. Now, the chart you're seeing depicted, the blue line is the price, in this case SPY, or the S&P 500. That's just an ETF that tracks it. And the green bars are the net buy-sell ratio. So if it's greater than 1, that means there's more buying than selling. If it's less than 1, there's more selling than buying. And over on the right side, here's the 1 line right here. So that's 1. So anything above that means they're net buyers, or picking up shares. Anything below that means, they're just doing their normal selling of stock. And what we see fairly quickly is insiders have a great sense of when to buy, right? They bought huge here in 08, early 09. The market was collapsing right there near the bottom. The only other time they've bought really heavy is in mid-2011 with that one real pullback we had in the indexes over the last 5-year bull market. So as we scroll down through the different aspects of the market, I don't know why the word is slipping me right now, but the different sectors here, you're seeing the same trend, right? Here's financial services, big buys taking place, obviously 08, 09, probably the best time to buy these stocks in all of history. And then other big buys have taken place here in 11 during that dip. Financial services, you're seeing a lot more insider buying, right? If we look at the net ratio of just buying to selling, we notice over the overall index, it's mostly selling. Here's the 1 line in financial services. They've still been buying pretty heavily in their own stock. Compare that to real estate down here below. It's not quite as clear, but you're seeing the same thing. We're seeing over and over insiders buying at opportune times in the market, and being net sellers, these richer valuations. So the two charts you're seeing on the left side is just total insiders. The right side is just the CEOs and what their action is. And if there's the smartest guy in the room and someone who knows the value of that company better than anyone else, it's likely to be the CEO. And so we're seeing that in real estate. We see the same thing across the energy market, utilities, healthcare. Pretty much everything is demonstrating us the same general thesis, that insiders are pretty savvy buyers. They tend to know when to get into stocks, and they tend to outperform general investors when it comes to timing their buys and sells. So someone asking about if we can look at 07. I don't think the data goes back before 2008. I'm going to try to look into that. If he can pull it, he'll show it toward the end of this webinar. But that's just the general theme here, right? So we're seeing they're good at from a big picture outlook, right? They're just timing global trends, and now you want to dial it down, right? Individual stocks, every stock in the market did not follow this pattern, right? Most of them took a hit in 08, 09, but not all of them have done exactly like this. A lot of stocks have done this and this and this. In the meantime, you're going to see usually insider buying here and here, and not so much here and here. All right, so what we can do, there's several tools that are built in here that you guys can use. You see them across the top here of the insider section, and it's broken down in several groups. Going to go through each of these. CEO buys, pretty obvious, right? It's showing us new buys from corporate CEOs, and when it gives you all this data, what you can do, you can sort this down if you want to look at small caps or mid caps or large different sectors. You can find stocks that are within a certain percentage of their low or high. And then what I like to do is really filter this by the total cost of the trade. And that's this figure right here. So it's just the number of shares they bought by the cost of those shares. Because 100,000 shares is not impressive for a 25-cent stock, but it's a big position in a $10 or $15 stock. So by sorting this, I can see the real relevant trades, right? I can see the ones, if a guy puts $1,500 in a stock, forgive me for not being overly optimistic, but this guy's putting in $719,000 worth of stock. That's a more significant buy to me. Okay, so that's one I'm more inclined to dig into and take a look at the company. So quick way to find here CEO buys. Do the same thing with the CFO or the Chief Financial Officer. Probably the second guy holding the keys there who has a really good idea of what that stock is worth and when opportune times to buy may be. Again, don't follow the sells. I mean, if the CEO and the CFO, if they're dumping all their shares and the stock tumbles a month later, they're probably going to jail. Okay, so it's not going to happen. For the most part, you're not going to get any heads up by the sales there. We also have something called insider cluster buys, and what this is, it'll show you if multiple insiders have been buying a stock. Now, once again, you can filter this down, but by default, it's filtered on the left by how many insiders are buying the stock, right? So it could be the CEO, the CFO, the director of marketing, some 5% owners, all these different guys. So the more insiders you have buying all at the same time, and this is total number of buys and the total number of unique buyers. So if one guy bought 3 different times, it's only going to show up 1 on this list. But you're seeing those with a lot of conviction, right? So if one of these stocks, if 10, 15 guys, they're all buying at the same time, it's a little bit more convincing for me that this is an opportunity worth looking into. Next here is double buys across the top, and what you can look for is stocks that are bought by both insiders and gurus, right? If we're going to find people whose actions we value, those investors who we take a cue when they buy, right? They get our attention. For any given stock, who's it going to be? It's going to be the people inside the company, executives, people that are intimately familiar with that company and the prospect, what the future looks like. And then these gurus that this website is kind of based on, right? We're watching our Buffetts and we're watching our Soroses and these legendary guys who've had 10, 20, 30-year track records of beating the market. So we can scan for both here, and you can pick a number of gurus who have bought the stock, and then a number of insiders that have bought the stock as well. And you can also filter by the company buyback rate. And so what that does is allow you to pull a list of stocks being bought across the board by insiders, by gurus, and by the company itself. That's what a triple buy is, right? Double buy is just two of those three. So we leave insiders at 2, or leave insiders in, and now we're just searching for gurus and the company buying back. So three important people buying the stock, right? Company insiders, gurus, and then the company itself. If they feel that buying back shares is a beneficial allocation of their capital, that might be worth noting. So kind of a cool tool here. You can dig through them, and obviously you can go to export this data with Excel if you want to search for different regions, positions within the last however many months, and download that data into an XLS file for your personal use later. Now, it looks like a lot of work, right? So I want to show you how you can use kind of the scanners to find some of this information, just how to look at stocks on an individual basis and kind of analyze that insider information. So we'll use our screener here. If you guys haven't used the all-in-one screener, I encourage you to try it. If you're not a premium member, sign up for the trial. You can cancel anytime within 7 days. At least play with it, see if you can't find yourself some great stock ideas. It's a really, really powerful tool. You can. Okay. But using the all-in-one screener here, like anything else, it's got an insiders tab. So this screener, I'm telling you, it's incredibly powerful. Fundamental data, valuation, profitability. You essentially scan for anything. High dividend stocks, those trading at relatively low valuations, those near lows and highs, what different gurus and money managers are doing with it. Then also we've got this insiders tab here. So on the insiders tab, you can scan for those stocks meeting the specifications we mentioned earlier. All right, so if you want to see, you can search by number of shares or by dollar amount. I like to do it by dollar amount because stocks vary a great deal in price, and a 50-cent stock and a $50 stock, the share count is going to matter. So search CEO, search CFO. You can search clusters of insiders selling here or insiders buying. And then you can also search the duration. So Charlie mentioned to me a second ago, he's got a guy that he talks to on the phone regularly, and he does a lot of searches for insiders. What he says his parameter is up to, he looks for buys over the past 2 months and wants to see CEO buys of $100,000 or more. And then at least 2 insiders buying. So if we go to insiders, 2+, so it's not just the CEO acting alone. And you pretty quickly get a list. It's going to show you all the buys. Some stocks may be replicated, but you're going to see those stocks being bought with some conviction over the last 2 months. And once again, you can filter this by the cost. See a couple of huge ones here. Kinder Morgan putting up $6.3 million buy from the CEO. Same here with Intrixcon Corp, another Kinder Morgan buy by the same guy. So you're seeing some big trades here. And then from there, you can just kind of dig into these companies a little bit further to see if this looks like an opportune time to buy. Now, if we click on the stock symbol over here, it'll obviously take us to the summary page of that stock. And so we can go directly back to the insider tab, or we can just begin kind of analyzing this company through the financials and through some of the summary financial data here. Now this is a relatively new company, only been around since 2011. Let's see if we can't find another one. Here's Fresh Market, CEO doing a $600,000 buy. Let's take a look at the Fresh Market. Another relatively new security, but you can see here a couple of things. So it's going to plot the institutional ownership history. So how much attention is it getting from the institutional money? And Lynch was a big fan of finding stocks with low institutional ownership, because as soon as they are fully discovered by the smart money or the big money, the opportunity is less there. It's also plotting you over the last several years the number of insider buys and sells. You see sell bars there in red, buy bars there in green, and here's the big insider buys we're seeing right now with this stock. So some of the biggest ones we've seen since the stock IPO'd, it's right here around the $30, $35 price range. So if I'm a long-term buyer of the fresh market, and I've been keeping it on my watch list looking for a time to buy, this might grab my attention to take a closer look. Obviously, the stocks come from 60 down to about $33 a share over the last year and a half. Scott, what percentage of institutional ownership? I mean, it's a tough question. The thing is, stocks are so heavily held by institutions today. It's tough to find a lower percentage there. But if you get a stock, I'd say that's less than 50% institutional owned, is generally not full. It's fairly undiscovered in terms of being a smaller cap stock that doesn't have all the attention of Wall Street. Now, Charlie tells me 10-year financial data is now available here. So, Manuel, let me see if I can take a look at that, the insider trend. I believe you just changed the code on this page. Okay, so here it is. Now we got full data, Manuel, as you were requesting here. So it's going back a full 10 years, and we're seeing about the same thing. Fairly light buying back here 06 and 07. It looked like there was, especially in the financial services arena, there was some premature buying here. They thought this was going to be a great opportunity. The beginning of 08 as it began to collapse and it sank much further, but they just kept buying and they kept buying. Manuel, I didn't change anything on my end. Charlie actually, the founder of GuruFocus, actually went in and changed the code on the website for you so that it now displays longer term data. So if you go to it now, that should work for you. See, all you got to do is ask. Boss man will fix it for you. All right, so that's the basic idea of it. Let's look at some individual companies to kind of see how this has worked out. I'm going to pull up BioReference as a stock we've looked at in some recent webinars, and here is their insider transaction history. And we look, this stock's been kind of all over the map. It's been a bit of a volatile one. It went from $12 in late 11 up over 30 toward the end of last year. And if we see, the only time there was real insider buying was right here at that stock bottom. Same thing with the number of buys. So that's a pretty bullish sign to me. We also see insider ownership as a percentage. It's the total percentage of shares being held by insiders was declining. Started picking up right here in 2011, early 2012, which is right about here on that stock price chart. We're seeing kind of the same thing. You can go through and see the actual trades. Again, you're going to see a lot of sells. It's just normal. But when you look at the big buys, this is when they took place. Look at a couple of others. Coca-Cola, obviously a big one we can take a look at. So you see there's a lot more data with Coke, much larger company, much higher number of insiders. We see some pretty decent buys here. I mean, most of the time they're getting in on sort of pullback periods here. So if we look at the total volume of these, bought here on this dip here before this run up. That one doesn't look terribly greatly timed, but this one was bought right here before it pushed higher. And then this one, early 14, bought as it bottomed out around $37, $38 a share. So, not as conclusive of evidence. I mean, I wouldn't trade Coke based on what these numbers look like unless you just start seeing huge insider buys above and beyond. Okay, Saul's got a good question. He says, where does the stock buyback information come from? Is it from changes in outstanding shares from the balance sheet? Yes, and that's actually on the income statement, but right, changes in outstanding shares figure at the bottom of the income statement. That's what calculates the company buyback rate. So I assume you guys are familiar with stock buybacks. Johanna, it says Coke has not been kind to institutional money. Yeah, I mean, they call it smart money. I don't know why. I don't think it's any smarter than us. It just, has deeper pockets. And when you look at institutions, I mean, they owned it. Well, I don't know. They owned it pretty heavy up into here. Started selling. No, that's not right. I'm sorry. These charts aren't the same time period. Owned it pretty heavily up into late 2010, which is back here. Let it go. It's had this great run. They started buying it again early 11. Yeah, I mean, they don't look like they timed this one terribly well. No. In. Let's look at another. Charlie says EXAN or M? Exam works. Okay, let's look at the insider trade history here. It's a bit of a task. I mean, I wouldn't expect you all to go through 5,000 ticker symbols one at a time and look at this stuff, but it should be a part of your analysis. You get a good stock idea, you're drilling it down, you're looking at the numbers. This is nice to have to check over, say, hey, what's going on? Maybe it's a nice positive, or I don't really see anything. And yeah, some nice insider buy history here as well. So it looks like insiders, they begin to kind of cash out a bit here, a little prematurely, but look at the big buys. We really didn't have anything until late 2011, early 12. And, they're not going to time the bottom any better than you and I are, but they started buying here around 20 into about 10 and have ridden this stock up for about a 150 to 300% return over the last year and a half. So another one that's kind of a lot of people got their eyes on right now, people are arguing, is it a value trap or is it not, is Weight Watchers. And without giving a recommendation one way or the other, I want to take a look at what insiders have been doing with this. And you see they're still not buying. There have been no insider buys here. The stock has come from $80 a share down to $21 a share, and we still see no insider buys. We scroll down here. I mean, we're going back to early 2011. There's not a single insider buy. Now, I don't know who this person is, but whoever West End SA is, they have timed this thing beautifully. And if you look at their sales, 2 million, 3 million, and 10 million shares between late February and early April of 2012. If we go back and look at what that stock was doing then, let me show you. So whoever this person is sold the equivalent of 15 million shares. You want to see what moves the market? This is what moves the market. In February of 2011, here began selling when it was at 60, and then dumped massive numbers between then and May, right there. So this person dumped 15 million shares of Weight Watchers on the market between right there and right there. So really, really phenomenal timing. I wouldn't be surprised if that sell action, that 10 million share sell that he put in, caused this right here. At least this first half of the move, because that much selling is just, law of physics. There's that many sellers versus buyers. You're going to get a decline in price. But if you're looking at time Weight Watchers, I mean, one way to do it, assuming it's something you want to buy, if you don't want to wait for the stock price to react, is just to watch the insider transaction, to wait for someone on the inside who knows that company to put his money where his faith is, right? I mean, if the CEO is that bullish on the stock, he should have some capital put towards it, and so far we're not seeing that. Another one, a stock I own, and then I made a recommendation on a while back, just for a long-term growth stock, is AeroVironment, AV. And we're the market leaders in drone technology, which a lot of people think is going to be a large market in the U.S. within the next 5 years, as Obama's mandated Congress to open, for the FHA to open up airspace to 55-pound and less drones. And when you look at this company, I mean, I was a little bit late. I mean, I've only owned it since like 28 or so. It's up a little bit. you know, 25, 30% or so in the last 6 months. But when you see the insider buys here, I mean, these guys were pretty darn good. We see sell, 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 and then look where they start buying. And see the same thing here and here, right? So these smaller companies, I mean, this is somewhere around, it may be $1 billion market cap now. It was around 700 million. You know, they don't have a ton of analyst coverage. Wall Street is not hawking on this company for the most part when they're small. They just can't allocate capital towards it. So insiders are one of your best places to go. You know, for a look to win might be a good time to buy the stock, and you'll see those buys there as they timed it almost perfectly with the run up there. I mean, they're up close to 100% in less than 12 months. Another one I like, which I'm waiting to see, is a value trap. Leapfrog. If you guys haven't checked it out, check the stock out. LF. Let me know what you think. It's currently trading just under $7 a share. 5.5 times earnings, 1 time book. They're not terribly predictable. If we look at their 10-year financials, we'll see that. But we finally began to get some insider buys here, and it looks like you can actually get it at better prices than the insiders did. So the first real buy we saw was here at late 11. They had a great call at around $3 a share and rewarded nicely. And since that, they bought late 12 and mid 13 at prices of, you know, somewhere between $7 and $8. Let's take a look at the actual trades to see the numbers. The cool thing is it gives you the exact trade price because they have to file that information. And we're looking in 12, sell, 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 and then, you know, these are the big owners. Where are they selling? They're selling in the 10s, and they're buying in the 7 and 8s. Right? We're seeing multiple buys here: 10,000, 50,000, 10, 15, 25, 25. You know, substantial buys in my opinion. I mean, unless these guys are billionaires, but you're talking about, you know, 500,000, 200,000, significant amounts of money for a single person to put toward a stock. And here we have a chance to buy it at better prices than they did. So, you know, it could be looked at as an opportunity where these guys don't do a lot of buying, and when they do, we're getting better prices. And you're seeing insider ownership has been climbing at a pretty steady rate. Institutional ownership's been climbing, but it's recently fallen, right? So all the way up to 95% late last year. They took some profits. The stock has pulled back. It's falling down to about 79%. So could have an opportunity here on Leapfrog. The voters are claiming the stock's got about a $12 fair value based on 8 votes. But we look at the financials, could be an interesting company. I mean, you have to have kids understand these products. They're the ones that make tablets for children. You know, revenue had been declining for a bit, but it seems to be sort of stabilizing. And the history of this company, they've had some bad years, right? They got overly optimistic. They didn't meet expectations. Revenue, you know, sank going into 2009, but has been on the up and up since then for the most part. And they've returned to profitability and seem to be doing fairly well. If they can continue these numbers, the stock will likely appreciate some. So don't want to make a blanket wreck on this stock, just something worth looking at, I think, if you're like me and dying for anything that offers a value in today's market. Nay says, what about NIUN? Nay, I'm not familiar with the stock. We can definitely take a look at it. It doesn't look like we have any information on the company. Is this a penny stock or an OTC or something? I don't think there's anything on that stock. So hopefully I haven't bombarded you with too much information. Let me know, what questions do you have? What do you want to look at? Is this making any sense to you? I mean, it's not the end-all, be-all, obviously. But again, these are, you know, we want to know what Buffett's buying. We want to know what Soros is buying. We want to know what these legendary fund managers have done. Can you? Oh, okay. So Charlie just told me a interesting feature here that I'll share with you. And what you can do, hopefully you guys know how to use the My Portfolios feature. If you don't, I would encourage you to check that out. Let me show you how this works. You can create your own portfolios. This is some stocks I was watching back in February. They're kind of some fairly valued stocks trading at a decent price. And you can, when you build this up, you can put the dates you added the stock, And when you do that, it'll automatically give you the close price on that day, so you can track it from that point. But it's really a neat tool in that it will allow you, if you're not investing, your personal money toward this, or you're trying something out, and you want to track the performance of it, you can do so in these virtual portfolios. All right, so here's another one. I had listed here some overvalued cyclicals I was watching that still tend to be pushing higher. But what you can do if you create a portfolio of the stocks you want to own, and I encourage you to maintain sort of a wish list, right? And you can just put the tickers down here, click Create New Portfolio. You can add them fairly easily, just putting a ticker in right here and adding it to your portfolio. But one of the cool things you can do is set up alerts on these stocks. Now at the top of the screen, you'll see a tab that says Email Alerts. It's a really neat feature you can use to take a lot of the work out of it. And you can set up what information you want to receive. So you can get a daily report on the activity. You can set it up to where you get alerts that the price moves by more than a certain percentage. And one of the things you can do here is insider trade. So if you set up an alert for insider trades on these stocks and just hit Save Settings, you will immediately be emailed any insider buys and sells relating to that stock. So if there's something you kind of have on your watch list, you're thinking, I want to buy that once I get a pullback, once I get the cue to do so, you can add them here to your portfolio and be alerted when that action takes place. Poke-wise, Leapfrog only rated as 1 star. Poke, the star rating is a business predictability ranking that Charlie built in, and what it does is analyze the predictability of the company's revenue and EBITDA. And so it's an algorithm that scans for how consistent those numbers are and how closely they track their growth trend line. So if you have a company whose earnings are doing something like this, it may be, a 2-star company, whereas if you have one that's more like this, that's probably a 4 or 5-star company. And there's a really, really in-depth study Charlie did here on the predictability of businesses and it's called "What Worked in the Market." And you can just search "what worked" and you'll see that. It's a really, really in-depth study he did a couple years ago, and I encourage you to read it because it makes a really, really strong case for predictable companies and undervaluation and how they wildly outperformed the S&P for that time period. BioScript from Rob. Let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at this company. I've not looked at BioScript, Rob. We can definitely take a look at it. See what kind of insider activity we're seeing. Not seeing any insider buys yet. Looks like institutions just nabbed this thing up last year from 44% to 96%. And to dig through, there's definitely no insider activity on this. Manuel, if you're looking at a stock that only goes back to 2011 for insider buy and sell, check to see if the stock IPO'd at that time. Let's see if we can get more data here. If you click on the tabs, let me see real quick. Any other questions about these insider trades and kind of how to manipulate this data, or what to look for and what to do with it? Vishal, where do you see buybacks? So Vishal, to see the actual buybacks, you'll see it in the 10-year financials. And here's how you can see that. There's 2 ways. One is if you scroll out of the income statement, the very last line item is shares outstanding, and that gives you the total number of outstanding shares. And if you see this number decreasing, as it is in Coca-Cola's case, that means they've been buying back shares and they're reducing that total share count out there. The other place you can see this, you see the last quarter is getting even smaller. They've been buying back a healthy number of shares. The other place to find this is in the cash flow statement. So if you scroll down past the balance sheet to the cash flows, one of the line items here is net issuance of stock. And it's the cash flows. We're measuring what happened with cash. So if it's a red number, that means cash went out. They bought stock. If it's a black number, that means cash came in and they issued more stock. So this is all red, which is good. It's what you want to see. You want to see them using capital, assuming they don't have other places to use it to grow at a faster rate, to buy back those shares. So that's where you're going to see the buybacks happening. Other than that, you have to read through the company financials and just, they'll list it out when they're doing issuing or continuing buyback programs. Scott, do you track an insider portfolio? I don't think we do track an insider portfolio. I looked at something tracking insider buys once, and it performed okay as a whole. Insider sell activity for shorts did not beat the market. Again, it's tough to calculate that because some guy could buy $1,000 worth of stock, and another woman who on the board may buy $1 million worth of stock. So you don't want to hold those two to the same degree of severity. But no, we don't maintain a portfolio like that. And Manuel and Saul, I'll let Charlie on here in just a second. I'll let him answer your questions, which are a little bit more in depth on the data of this site, because he's really the architect behind GuruFocus. Based on the current insider data, you think the stock market in USA will top soon? I mean, it's tough to say. I think a lot of things are definitely overvalued. I think we're seeing this correction from some of the ridiculous high flyers from last year. We're seeing Amazon, we're seeing Tesla, and we're seeing Netflix and Yelp come down to more reasonable valuations. I mean, a stock, no matter how, it can't stay at 150, 200 times earnings forever. I mean, eventually, people have to realize what's going on, and the stock will come down to that, to a more correct level. I wrote an article recently on the site entitled Every Growth Stock Follows This Pattern. And if you're kind of new to growth stocks and what the path is they go through, I'd encourage you to read this. It should be free to anyone, whether you're paid or not. But I just kind of talk about some of the biggest growth companies, and there's a cycle every one of them goes through, every single one, with very, very few exceptions. And it's kind of a 5-stage process these new stocks go through, where it's there's a startup phase, there's the growth phase, and they kind of stall out and get revalued. So what happens is they come out. We know that growth stocks trade at higher multiples, right? So they may trade at 20 or 30 or 40 times earnings. But eventually they go up here, the price is doing this while earnings are maybe growing like this, and it just goes too far. And then they get revalued by the market, come down, and then become sort of a more mature company. So there's a lot of stocks at that overvalued peak we're talking about that have just gone too far, too fast. I'm fine with growth companies, but if you're growing earnings at 20% a year and your stock price is doubling every year, you're getting too rich, right? The price is going too far, too fast. And I think that's happened with a lot of companies last year. And we're seeing institutional money kind of take some of that risk off the table and back out of some of those higher dollar, higher PE stocks, and the prices reacted accordingly. Any other questions regarding insider information, or really anything in general? I'll be glad to answer for you before I turn it over to Charlie for a few minutes. All right, well, thank you for your questions. Let me turn it over to GuruFocus founder, Dr. Charlie Tian. He's the architect of the website and the creator. I'll let him answer a couple of your questions. He's a little bit more technical regarding the data and how this stuff is sourced. And if you have any other questions or recommendations for the site or anything you'd like to see, please feel free to voice those to him.
Hi, thank you everyone. This is Charlie Tian. I'm trying to answer your questions. Scott asking, do we plan to take the portfolio up to 25 stocks as other portfolios? Yeah, we will. We will increase the number of stocks in the portfolio if we can find more stocks. Yes, but currently we cannot because those are the only stocks we found. The latency of the data, inside trade data on our site, it's from the time it's filed to SEC to the time it appears on our site is less than 30 minutes. There's no intermediate vendor. The insider information is updated every 30 minutes. The insider update is automatic. Yes, it's automated. Is the information is the same as on SEC on our page? I think our page provides easier to read information. Of course, we are based on where our data is from SEC originally.
Cohen's a toss-up, Norman.
Norman's asking about Steve Cohen. I'm sorry, I cannot comment on that. Where to start as a beginner? Where to start from for our website? And we have a very good tutorial here. Just go to home button, home tab, and the third link is tutorials. We have lots of things here. All the webinars we did before are archived here, and for everything you are looking for, type in the search box and you will find it. For instance, you can type Peter Lynch here. Just type Peter Lynch here. You'll find the concepts we use for related to Peter Lynch. For instance, here Peter Lynch fair value. That's the best place to look. About buybacks, the numbers we use we calculated from the shares outstanding from the company's balance sheets. So they are not directly from the SEC, and they have more delays. How do we match insider buying to actual price? The insider buying price is reported in the SEC form, so the price we have on there are the real price they paid, the average price they paid in their filings. Yeah, how do I prefer to invest my money? I prefer to invest best companies, good high quality companies at reasonable prices. More of Warren Buffett type. Yeah, and also I put money in the Peter Lynch newsletter. The real money in the Peter Lynch newsletter. We just started this month, and I feel very confident about the stock picks we have in the portfolio. And if there's no new questions, thank you everyone. I will return this to Ross.
All right, well, thank you, Charlie, and he is definitely more knowledgeable on the site than I am, so I wanted him to kind of answer some of your more in-depth questions. I don't want to keep you guys too long tonight, so there's no other questions. We can go ahead and wrap it up. If there's anything else you want to cover, I'll be glad to run over anything you want. Is it possible to get insider buy-sell info on foreign companies? I think we only have Canadian insiders. So for the Canadian markets, we do have insider transactions. In other countries, we do not, because their filing requirements are just differently. It's not that we're lazy and don't want the data, but you know, the requirements, what they have to report and don't, are not as stringent. Yeah. All right, well, thank you so much, all of you, for joining. I hope you learned something. If you didn't, I apologize for wasting 45 minutes of your time. Once again, if you want the recording, hover over home and hit tutorials. It should be up tomorrow. And you see down here on the right side, we put each of these weekly webinars posted embedded in this list. We did one on how to value stocks last week. We went pretty in depth on the most commonly used valuation metrics. You can see that there, one on stock scanning and several others. So feel free to access that. Tonight's recording will be here as of tomorrow. And you guys have a wonderful night. Invest well. Focus on value, and be sure to email us support@gurufocus.com if you have any questions or suggestions for us.